Welcome. We will be going live. We are live. Welcome to a special coffee with yours truly, Dragon. This morning, raining morning, 10 exactly 10 a.m. in Hawk Island, Montreal. Gonna be pouring a cup of coffee. Oh, spilled a bit of coffee. Clean. Just three drops. Three drops. It happens. That dirty but get clean. Welcome to this special edition Coffee with Dragon, a philosophical, theoretical, social analysis of my theory, which was written over the past years, coupled with many other philosophical, social theories, analysis, and philosophy of everything of nature and civilization. First and foremost, I want to say the most important message of all that I will say is make love tonight, because life is short, so otherwise, what are we fighting to save civilization and the free world for if somebody's not making love now, kissing, hugging this afternoon or late afternoon, this morning or later tonight? The topic tonight, today, this morning, it's night somewhere in the world as we have time zones, is the North American Civilizational Collective, or the collective of North American civilization. Now, I do advise everybody who listens to my theories, my philosophies, my art, my poetry, my chants, my songs, my philosophies and theories to, or spiritual teachings, as a universal spiritual teaching student, because I'm learning every day, to try as much as one can. It's not as easy for me to also do, to leave the baggage at the door. I'm not perfect, far from it. Got issues, got vices, get lust, get moody, get triggered, get upset, and broke. Admit it, guilty. Broke but not poor. My philosophies, theories, workouts, and dance is gold. My work is gold. Philosophy, theory, politics, and art, although broke. My work, philosophical, athletic, artistic work, is gold. 10 a.m. in the morning. The North American Civilizational Collective, or the Civilization of North America, or the, but you have to include the words collective, because those words, the collective designates, of course, the word collective designates a multiplicity, a plural formation with a common goal or a common understanding, or ruled by common principles, values, rules, regulations, and laws. Or a collective can be an amalgamation, an amalgam of different parts joining in a collective. It's parallel, but perhaps in different contexts used differently than the word cooperative. In this context, the word is not cooperative, but collective. A collective, the North American Civilizational Collective, or the Civilization, the North American Collective. Welcome. First, I want to get a gratitude for this cup of coffee, which the black beans coming from a red berry was initially made, created, and produced by the dance of the goddess with her brother the sun, harvested by my brothers and sisters, farmers who harvest all fruits, vegetables, and legumes, so that we build, maintain, or upgrade civilization. So, a sip to the farmers, a sip to the workers on the front lines, a sip for the truckers delivering goods, services across the North American civilizational collective, which is the topic and the discussion of my theory, written over the many past years, with one foot in the libraries, one foot in the streets. The North American Civilizational Collective is my own philosophical, social, geopolitical theory, as yours truly, Adrian Hanna Dragan, is an independent artist, independent athlete, independent activist, universal spiritual teaching student, philosopher, thinker, geopolitical analyst, created own workout, own scenario, created own workout, created art, philosophy. And this is one of the theories, coupled with my trinity of theories, which I'm calling for the implementation thereof: citizen integration theory, fusion theory, and democratic fusion theory. That trinity of theories to be implemented, part of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom project, which is an ongoing work, sort of a dream. Call me half a dreamer, a third dreamer, a third nerd, a third street, with a fourth dimension to that trinity. The Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, yours truly, Adrian Hanna, Dragon, androgynous pansexual founder thereof. Inviting, calling on all, willingly loving, because it's got to be from love. Love is action. The North American Civilizational Collective is a philosophical theory which I've written over the past years after my geopolitical analysis of civilizations. The Western civilization, of which, of course, the North American Civilizational Collective, the collective of North American civilization, or vice versa, the North American Civilizational Collective or the collective of North American civilization. It's either way you can use it, it is good, okay, and my theory, of course, is aka the North American Civilizational Collective or the collective of North American civilization. So this theory purports, states, stances on the premise on my theory that North America constitutes a collective, a civilizational collective, meaning a civilization that is an amalgamation, at the same time an amalgamation. It also has a transcendence or a superseding Western civilization in some ways being at par with it, from it, but at the same time having unique characteristics, unique geographical, social, cultural influence, cultural creativity, cultural manners, cultural feelings, cultural dimensions of the cultural life of culture, which expressed in the languages, the what I call the de facto official languages of the North American Civilizational Collective: English, French. Yours truly is in Montreal, Quebec, French, and now we have an ongoing, of course, controversy, one might call it, tension due to a new bill here in Quebec, the province of Quebec, due to the language situation. Myself being perfectly bilingual and being proud to have struggled, toiled to learn Spanish, which I also love, can manage myself in some Spanish. Perhaps my Spanish has a more Cuban feel to it than Mexican Spanish, but that is, of course, something that Spanish language has its nuances, just like the English language, the Canadian English, has its dimensions and pronunciations, intonations in different parts of North America. Right in the South, down in the deep South, when you go deeper south, it's a different accents, phonetics, and the influences of the English language. So this is, the three official languages are French, English, and Spanish. English, Spanish, and French. And of course, myself, Adrian Hanna Dragan, am fluent, could say perfectly fluent in English and French, which I do love both languages, and am okay managing Spanish, can read it, can understand to a high degree, perhaps not 100%, but close to 3/3, more than 70%, 75%, 3/4 for sure, and read Spanish and understand it, and even write in Spanish. Perhaps not perfect, but perhaps on a good enough scale if we are to scale. The North American Civilization Collective's three official languages, although there are many languages spoken by different peoples of North America and in North America. Their official languages are English, French, and Spanish, being that most speakers in the North American Civilizational Collective speak these languages. More than 8 million, more than about, well, in United States and Canada and across Canada, more than 10 million speak French, and of course, more than 100 million people in the North American Collective speak Spanish. More than 100 million people speak Spanish in the North American Civilization Collective, and more than almost 400 million speak English, right, in North America. So where do we begin? We begin, my theory begins a little bit post World War II. However, the North American Civilizational Collective begins earlier than World War II. But the major parts of my theory, my philosophy is that the North American civilizational collective of North America constituting a collective, a civilizational collective, a civilization of collectives, civilization, collective. The words they gotta go hand in hand because it's not yet a full, unique, or nor that we would want it to be, or that we want it to be a monolithic civilization, but of course it is a collective. So we start at World War II. However, it predates World War II. It can date even back to the United States US Civil War and other wars, which the US Spanish War and other wars, and can be, of course, during the Great Depression. But the main situational and in terms of a timeline of the emergence of the North American collective do pinpointed at the end or right at the beginning of World War II. So the theory is that North America, which comprises, of course, the countries, states of Canada, the Canadian Confederation, the United States of America, which is a federative, a more federation, and of course the Federative Republic of Mexico. The paradox is that also Cuba, do incorporate Cuba in the North American civilizational collective. I'm not going to go into the issues of the embargo, of the political, although there has been a rapprochement during the Obama era and there is during Biden, and there has to be a middle path, as yours truly is a universal revolutionary centrist, with my own theories believing for the 21st century. My universal revolutionary centrism and theories, propositions to be implemented, are in parallel with other creative theories and ideas of a creative nature. And again, I'm not perfect, far from it. Got issues, got vices, get moody, get upset, and I'm not perfect. Don't play self-righteous. And unless many leaders, even in the North American civilizational collective and the leaders of a free world, you won't see yours truly, Adrian Hanna Dragan, independent philosopher, athlete, artist, activist, universal spiritual teaching student, read from a piece of paper much, although when it comes to technical information and other stuff. And I do admit that in some areas of civilization and skills and competence, I am average, mediocre. I am below average, below mediocre, even fucking useless in some situations. That's why we have specialization and the complementarity of forces, of skills of complementarity that complement each other, hopefully to at least maintain civilization, not just the North American civilizational collective, but Western civilization and beyond, as I'm a world LGBTQ rainbow citizen in solidarity with all my rainbow nation across nations, with all my rainbow nation across nations, with all my rainbow nation across nations, and of course allies. The North American civilizational collective post World War II is an emergence. So it's an emergence, in a constant flux, constant emergency with its own peculiar technicalities, and in the social life, in the cultural life, philosophical life, artistic life, geopolitical, political, economic, financial, technological, and everything that comprises a civilization. So post World War II, World War II ends, and then we have new organizations and institutions formed in the Bretton Woods agreements. Many nations coming in the Bretton Woods agreement and forming the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and afterwards unique North American pacts, acts, or compendiums of treaties such as, for example, the more recent one in the 90s, in dating from the 80s, 88, I think NAFTA 1988. Double check my historical timelines, lost a lot of memory, read in the past 7 years, tens of thousands of books written, tens of thousands of pages of philosophy, poetry, and learning every day. In a parallel life, satellites, supercomputers, ICBM rockets, and gadgets is my chosen path. Diverged, and this one is philosophy, theory, art, physicality, and spiritual teachings. So after World War II, these new institutions arise. And of course, we have the Cold War. And in many aspects in my theory, the Cold War plays a major part. Second World War plays a major part in the emergence, development, creation of the North American civilizational collective. Another major part is the Cold War. Another geopolitical crises and revolutions, local and across the world. So the Cold War plays a major part. So Second World War plays the major part in the development, the beginning, the origins, the inceptions of the development, the creation, the emergence of the North American civilizational collective. Meaning that, of course, in the past decades prior to World War II, there has been relative decades of peace, internal struggle, criminality, turmoil, and tensions, and what have you, and other problems definitely in Canada, U.S., Mexico, and of course Cuba and the islands as well, but not wars on the scales that World War II started in Europe, with of course the emergence of Nazi Germany, which stands, of course, Nazi is the acronym short for National Socialist, fascist Germany, right? The emergence of Hitler as a dictator, and of course the invasion, the beginning of World War II, usually pinpoint 1939, about the beginning of World War II. Are we in World War III? That's a question for another cup of coffee. Analyzing, support, commission, make a donation, make a commission, sponsor a coffee with yours truly, Dragan, if you want Dragan's analysis, a deep introspective analysis of the current events, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, the Ukraine-Russia crisis, and the crisis of Europe and the world global, for that matter, which has began by in February 24th with Russia, of course, invading Ukraine, Russian armed forces, and the ongoing military conflict in Russia and Ukraine. If you want an in-depth analysis of that, commission sponsor, have my own philosophical theories after analyzing Putin's speeches and the discourse of Putin before the invasion, during and after, and my analysis, in-depth, profound, perhaps a bit too sophisticated or complex analysis of Alexander Dugin's philosophies and theories and propositions in his discourses and speeches. So if you will, for something like that, we can contact me, and perhaps me or my official volunteer representative, Retzi Work, will instruct, direct you, commend you in my name to make a invitation and a special live stream Coffee with Dragon and record it on YouTube, if you will, for an hour or even more than an hour session of an analysis of the current events, current from a geopolitical, social, political perspective and analysis, with deep introspective meditations on the current events, not necessarily like the leaders of the free world to read from a piece of paper, much read, and studied the current events and analyzed and meditated and analyzed the Alexander Dugin's social geopolitical philosophy and Putin's geopolitical philosophy and stance. And I am calling for a ceasefire, calling for peace, not just in Russia and Ukraine, but worldwide. We understand that we gotta channel our aggressions, channel and sublimate. Sublimate is a key word. Channel and sublimate into constructive activities such as working out, training, which has been medicine and therapy for me, and which for years have been calling and advocating for the mass financing thereof by the creation of the now binational and international Dragan Army, to encourage people to work out, train, exercise, run, jog, do communicate work, do 100 push-ups, do 50 push-ups, do squats, do hogs, do marching steps. It has been, is, and will be medicine and therapy for me, working out, training, and exercising on my fitness journey, more than 77 pounds down. North American Civilizational Collective, its beginnings, origins started about the beginning of World War II. So we see that Europe is at war in World War II, right? Nazi Germany invading France, Poland, amalgamating, annexing Austria, and of course Britain and the USSR arising. Pardon? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm here, so the North American Civilizational Collective begins at the beginning of World War II. In its origins, in its inceptions, and the development occurs over decades and is an ongoing process. It's happening today with tensions, divisions, of course, within the North American civilizational collective, but thank God, Goddess, no war conflict on a major scale. Trying to avoid that. Sure. Huh? Hmm. And that was friend. So, the North American civilizational collective constitutes a civilization, an entity of civilization that's a collective, meaning an integration, an amalgamation, a fusion of different civilizations, but at the same time, it's not just a fusion, but transcendence and a sort of a superseding of Western civilization in many ways. You can say the word breakaway, but it's not really a breakaway because it's still integrated within Western civilization. It's still united with Western civilization because of treaties, pacts, and part of the human civilization, of course. Part of the greater human civilization, which is another theory, the greater human civilization, which also starts to begin around World War II. Post World War II and the development in the 90s and in the 80s with globalization and international announcement, universal revolutionary centrist, universal global international, worldwide. I do believe in world peace with my peculiar being a North American androgynous LGBTQ, member of the LGBTQ community. North Americans constitute a very diverse plurality of people. Main languages are English, French, and Spanish, right? And what propelled even further the North American civilizational collective are treaties such as NAFTA. Sure, we can critique different points and the economic inequality, which my brothers and sisters, we gotta do more, we gotta do more, we gotta do more. I'm encouraging the incentivization of volunteering. In my advocacy, I'm even advocating for the financing of people to work out, to train and exercise. To train and exercise. Because of course, multi-millionaires and billionaires, what's happening today, 10:22 a.m. morning, same time zone in New York, in the North American civilization. You have time zones. Stock markets in Montreal, stock markets in Toronto. Buy, sell on Wall Street now. Who's making a million right now? Somewhere in the high, in those high office towers or below at the middle. Buying, selling, algorithms, selling, trading, phones ringing, futures, buy, stocks, options. And that's part of it. But you gotta do more. You gotta do more. Increasing living wages. Mass finance food security. In the Dragan Army, my stance is on the three securitizations. Securing food, housing, and transport. Securing food, housing, and transport. Securing food, housing, and transport. And then working towards an economy of pleasure and purpose. Working towards an economy of pleasure and purpose. My theoretical analysis and theories, philosophical social theories on the economic, financial, commercial domain and area. An economy of both pleasure and purpose. This body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. Right? Volunteering. To incentivize volunteering, working out and training. I got work to do on myself. I'm not perfect. That's why I want to collaborate with others. Right? More or less. Sometimes we don't get along. So, because we don't get along, there's tensions. We have different characters, experiences, skills. Pardon? Definitely. It's my sister. So the North American Civilizational Collective comprises Canada, United States of America, Mexico. Paradoxically, do put Cuba in it. Since the rapprochement, of course, with the United States during the Obama, now during Biden, the relaxation. The paradox of Cuba is that Cuba has maintained its socialist communist system. In many ways, it's a paradox. Right? And just another paradox is my creation. Back in October 2019, me, as a geopolitical analyst, analyzing the geopolitical situation across the world, local, national, international, and coming to the conclusion back in October 29 that, hey, brothers and sisters, humanity, we're again on a path towards another international conflagration, another world war, World War III, back in October 2019. I've taken geopolitical events, major geopolitical events such as the US China trade war, beginning earlier, but during the Trump administration, with in March around 2018, with the Trump administration starting imposing tariffs on Chinese imports and imports from China, and China retaliating and vice versa, and going tit for tat, and even more throughout a few years, and the crisis deteriorating, the Sino-Canadian, Sino-American, Sino-North American crises, and Sino-Western crises ongoing, and it seems to be from at the worst. And of course, have been advocating for a resolution, for a common peace agreement. Sure, we can do better, we can do more. Within ourselves, we have to analyze the selfishness, our own prejudices in our hearts, our own racism, our own skills, our own competencies, our own hidden fears, hidden lust, and misunderstanding cultures and civilizations, and economic, financial systems, right? And technological systems, and this and that, right? How much do we really know, right? I don't know it all. I have questions, questions, questions. Even as a philosopher, theoretical in theory, know a little bit. I've analyzed profoundly my own self, my own selfishness, my own prejudices. It's hard to admit certain things. Hard to admit certain things, hard to admit certain things. As much as I am a human being, international, universal, global. Act local, think global. Act local, think global. Act local, think global. I don't go much for slogans, although some slogans are incorporate a fundamental essence, just like my theory, philosophical theory of the North American civilizational collective has the essence in the name, has an essence. Collective is a meaning of a plurality being amalgamated into a sort of a unity with common purpose, common denominators, common denominators, common denominators. Humanity, there's more common denominators and common aspirations, which, which, which do affect us, which we do desire, we do will for our personal or for the as part of a society, and within society, within civilization, we have different cultures and subcultures within the general cultures, right? If you will, somebody wills for me to commission this independent philosopher to the philosophy of China, and I've written a philosophical analysis, a deep, profound, complex analysis of China. And as much as we can critique, we critique our own and critique myself also. If we critique, we gotta offer positive criticism and alternative solutions. For example, today what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna write poetry, I'm gonna keep on writing philosophy, keep on writing songs, keep on hoping. Loving, love is by action, love is action as well, part of my philosophy. The body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. Means I can get dirty, I'm gonna get back clean. Right now, I'm in my underground room office and temple, Montreal, Hawk Island. I'm a private citizen. I can turn everything off, get naked, start dancing on Madonna, Kanye West, Tekashi 69. I have that right. Close the blinds, though. Close the blinds, though. Close the blinds. Turn everything off with music, get naked, dance. But when do step outside, I'm no longer just private citizen. I'm also a public citizen with responsibilities added. I can keep myself 2 meters away from others, but I can work out in a park. Just yesterday, for example, somebody let the dogs out of the leash, an incident. And the dog park, I was working out in the park where people work out, where there's stadium for working out, for exercising, for running, for soccer. And next to it is a dog park. But some citizens, fellow citizens with the dogs, decided to come there and let the dog out of the leash. The dog started running, and I was working out training in the corner far from them, but the dog nonetheless came running and barking towards me. I stopped for a few seconds and I said, give him a warning. I said, I'm working out training, intense working out, Dragan working out. I said, warning, 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 giving him a warning. I said, I'm wearing steel toe boots. I'm wearing steel toe boots. Give him a warning. I'm wearing steel toe boots, warning. I'm working out training, exercising. You don't want the dog too close to me. I'm allergic to certain dogs. Certain dogs I like. Usually the ones that have woolly hair. I can hug them, kiss them all day. Some dogs I get allergic. Usually when they bark too much. When they bark too much. When they bark too much. So if anybody wants to finance, commission, sponsor, donate for your study to make a coffee with Dragan, an in-depth analysis of China, not merely through a lens of a one-party communist socialist states, which it is, and we can criticize and say whatever this is about the North American civilizational collective. I don't want to digress too much, but a deep analysis on the premise theory that China is not only a one-party communist socialist state, but China constitutes a civilization of which many in the West we do not fully understand. We do not fully understand. We do not fully understand. I extend my right arm. I'm going thus east, going towards crossing the Atlantic is Europe, Africa, Middle East, and that's for me the West, going towards the prairies here in Canada, Ontario first, then comes of course Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, going to British Columbia, and crossing the Pacific we get Asia, Japan, South Korea, China, right on that side. This is the West, my left hand and my right hand. I extend both hands and to the north, to the south, to all willingly loving. It's not easy to have peace. Peace, and of course, charity has to begin also at home, right? It's also said if I make $1, I know who I'm gonna give half to. My sister. Anonymous, anonymous, anonymous. If you want a commission on just me analyzing China from less bipartisan and less, as much as I'm a North American, try to be as as unbiased as can be. But at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, it's have a North American, although global, international, universal heart and willingness and philosophy. I am a North American, part of the Western civilization, part of the West Side, the Western world. At the beginning of the day, during the day, and at the end of the day. Right? So the North American Civilizational Collective, the collective of North American civilization, right, Canada, US, Mexico, Cuba, and of course even the islands. NAFTA plays a major part. North American Free Trade Agreement, but this is the economic, financial, commercial part of the development of the North American collective, because the trading and exchanging freely of goods and services, whether XYZ, whatever it is. Check the products when you go to the market. You see some come from Mexico. There's coffee from Cuba here on the market in Canada. I don't know about US. In Obama there's been tourism, but I integrate Cuba due to the liberalization of tourism. There's a lot of Quebecers, Canadians who go to Cuba. Tourism and vice versa, right? Although the paradox is Cuba is the unique paradox in the North American civilizational collective, because it has maintained its one-party state, socialist communist state, and that is a paradox in many ways. Just like my paradox of me creating the general war integrated total body training system, my workout training system, of which I'm proud to have created and say that it is perfection. Total body training system which requires no equipment. Created back in October 2019, again, was designed, made and created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario. After this, independent geopolitical analyst, philosopher, independent artist, activist, athlete, world, as paradoxically again as a world peace advocate, but also as somebody who sees what's happening within myself, within my own aggression, within my own violence, my own prejudices, my own don't play it self-righteous. Analysis and the analysis of North America, Western civilization of the world. Back then in October, I sounded the alarm. I said, brothers and sisters, we are again headed towards an international conflagration, World War III, and had created, designed, made, and the General War Integrated All Body Training System, designed, made, and created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, based on my analysis of geopolitical major events. The US-China trade war, the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, consequently the arrest of the two Michaels Pavel, Michael Kovrig. Now they were released 7 weeks or more ago, right? Another geopolitical event, the Islamic State ongoing terrorism, historical events such as Pearl Harbor and so on. October 17 performed the first session of the General War Integrated Body Training System that were made and designed to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, based on my geopolitical analysis. Now, I don't know it all. This Dragan, aka Limp Dick, bless, sister. Tiny hands, tiny feet, tiny little androgynous clit scar dick. Now that we got that out of the way, got a fourth dimension, big trinity, big mouth. Some brains and some muscle, not perfect, far from it. Got lusts, got vices, got issues. Leaders of the free world, they get in front of us, they lead from a piece of paper. A few words, look back at the camera. Read another few words from a piece of paper, look down, look again at the camera. Mr. Jens Stolberg, my brother. Ursula. Justin Trudeau, brother. Biden, brother. I'm not gonna read that much from a piece of paper. And please, leaders of the free world, leaders of North America, please, could you use the word I love you? Somebody's not making love now, this morning, later tonight. What are we fighting to save this North American civilizational collective and free world and Western world and the free world for if somebody's not making love now? Who made $1 million now in an hour? Who made $1 million? Buy, sell. Elon Musk, brother, you made another $1 million now? Invite Elon Musk, Sheryl Sandberg, Mark Zuckerberg in this underground room off some temple. My sister bought me a cup of some coffee a few weeks ago, less than a week ago, so I can give you all, to all three of you, as a cup of coffee. In a parallel life, I'm a compendium hybrid of Bill Gates, Sheryl Sandberg, and Elon Musk. In this life, I'm another trinity plus the fourth dimension, independent philosopher, geopolitical analyst, independent athlete, independent activist, independent artist, and universal spiritual teaching student with my own spiritual teachings, arising in new spirituality, particularly, of course, with my own another theory of spiritual, this one, spiritual and psychosexual, of my own theories of that the LGBTQ community have deep within the LGBTQ community. There's the release of deep, profound energies, just like the rainbow flag constitutes, such as another collective of different colors, which, of course, they contrast, right? So we have those deep energies within the LGBTQ community, which has, and let's face it, sexual liberation has not come without blood, sweat, and tears. For me personally, for any others, and for Canada, for USA, for the North American Civilizational Collective, or for the Western world, free world, and the world, for that matter, as my LGBTQ communities in all continents, Africa, Asia, Russia, and Europe, and Latin America. There's a percentage more or less open, more or less out of the closet, as they say. As I've been for a few years, been to a lot of pride parades. And I want to build a rainbow dancing army. I'm looking for allies or fellow LGBTQ members to trade, exchange, massage, therapy sessions, which cannot afford because I'm broke but not poor, and my work is gold, who say no lying. North American Civilizational Collective has also a unique cultural emergence. In this unique cultural emergence, there is, of course, the arts and the languages, and the language just have also changed. French has changed from the French from France. Here, ici au Québec quand même, c'est un français quand même québécois, c'est quand même avec la grand-mère, tout ça qu'on a regardé comme vous, là, la grand-mère, la Becherel, tout ça, on consulte, on écrit quand même comme les Français, mais quand on parle, on récite des poèmes, des chansons rock and roll, we have a different from the English that's spoken in England, and the French that's spoken in French, and the Spanish that's spoken in Spanish, which reflects the uniqueness or the transcendence and emergence of this within the North American civilizational collective, a cultural uniqueness to this North American civilizational collective, which expresses in the different cultural Spanish that exists in Mexico that has transformed from the Spanish from France and has unique words and expressions related to the geopolitical realities and the cultural realities of Mexico within the North American civilizational collective. There's the different cultures of Mexico, which also integrate, fuse, amalgamate within the North American collective, which has a culture, and it's part of the cultural exchanges which we have, where the trade of goods and services, of culture, of Hollywood, of course, plays a major role. Plays a major role because Hollywood movies, they take the movies from the cowboys after the Second World War in the 50s, even in the 40s, right? You also have a lot of movies from Hollywood that incorporate North American civilizational collective due to the fact that many movies portray Canada in certain ways, whether with stereotypes or not. We can go movie by movie and another in-depth analysis, but however, and also Mexico, right? With Mexico as on the Texas, for example, Arizona in the south, right, and Baja California in the California state, and a uniqueness social, cultural, demographic within the North American civilizational collective, which comprises Mexico, United States, Canada, and even Cuba. That's a paradox within the North American civilizational collective. Cuba's integration in it is a paradox. Of course, the islands which exist, right, which exist will have their different influences, and Haiti, of course. I put Haiti and the Dominican Republic within the North American civilizational collective because my Haitian brothers and sisters, they also have Creole, which Creole is a language which has a lot of French words, Spanish words. It's a confluence. That's the uniqueness. Now, Cuba is a paradox due to that, but also the islands are integrated within the North American civilizational collective, right? Here in Canada, huge demographics from coast to coast. Canada is we're close to 38 million people. United States 350 million people. Mexico more than 110 million people. So there's more than 500. With Cuba is about 11 million, I believe Cuba. Haiti, I believe around 10 also. Dominican Republic also around 10. Less or more people on the islands. So we have more than half a billion people. More than 500 million people. The North American civilizational collective that is arising. One part of that arising, Cold War. I mean, Cold War and the World War II is the origin of the inceptions, the beginning of the North American civilization collective. Since we have Canada did not fight U.S., Mexico did not fight the U.S. did not fight any Canada or Mexico or Cuba. There was no conflict in the North American within North America. There was no armed conflict within any countries for many decades. And there was no conflict between Canada and the US. They were united, and we are united. We have my policy is two oceans, one border. Simple. Two oceans, one border. Two oceans, one border. That way is East, Maritimes, provinces, New Brunswick, Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, right? Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and that's the west. We have the prairies, Ontario, big province, most populated province in Canada. Or just like California is the most populated in the United States, and I believe Texas is the most populated. No, California is the most populated. I believe Texas or New York come in second or third. I have a doubt there. I'm pretty sure California is the most populated state of the United States, of the 50 states. I believe Texas comes in second or third after New York State. So check me on that. Or in the top five. They're not top five. For sure, Texas and New York are in the top five. That's for sure. I even believe Texas is second and New York third, or vice versa. New York is second as a population wise, not not geo expanse or geographical expanse in square miles or square kilometers. So World War II, there was no conflict, direct conflict between any of the country's states in North America. And World War II started propelling North America to become, in many ways, a North American civilizational collective. Right. It's like I have a theory proposition, the paradox of the American empire, unwilling empire, let's call it. If you want to commission, donate, make a coffee with Dragan on that, you can make a deal and you can make a session, an hour or more than an hour session on, again, revising, and which is online on YouTube years ago, on my theory proposition, philosophical proposition called, and theory called unwilling empire. Unwilling empire is, again, parallel to the North American civilizational collective. That unwilling empire is that the United States became an empire because it had adopted a more isolationist policy during the Great Depression era, the USA, when the Great Depression after the stock market crash of 1929 in October, the USA practiced during Roosevelt was more isolationist. So foreign diplomacy and foreign exchanges and foreign intervention was not practiced. Isolationism in geopolitics is a little more internal, but strictly more internal, with a very domestic affairs solely concerned policies, right? Which we don't have that much nowadays, right? A globalized world. But that was the case for more than 13 years, from the Great Depression till the World War, till the Japanese Imperial Army, Japanese Empire, attacked Pearl Harbor. That's why unwilling empire. And then the United States mobilized. The United States wasn't the best, most powerful military. So that surprise attack, in many ways, triggered the unwilling empire. If we have to call an empire now or not, that's another discussion or open for debate. But my theory, proposition, philosophical, geopolitical theory is, of course, unwilling empire. America, an unwilling empire, and how it became to be about it, of course. So the North American civilizational collective, in many ways, was the World War II, because there's no conflict. So unlike the European Western civilization of Europe, Germans fought the British, and French, and Poles, and Russians fought sort of East, West, Ireland, and Serbians, and Romanians, and Magyars, Hungarian, also Magyar, Hungary. But it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which dissoluted after World War One. Right? And you had Austria, which was annexed by the Nazis. So you had, and then the invasion of Poland, the invasion of France by Nazi Germany, and of course, Nazi Germany conquered or defeated, whatever words you use, both Poland and France, right, and spread Czechoslovakia, throughout the. They had a deal with fascist Italy, who was also Italy, was fascist under Mussolini. But you had war in Europe. It's like we have war in Europe now. We haven't had a war in. It was the worst war now, and since World War II, and we had civil wars in Yugoslavia. Right, Yugoslavia was united under Tito, and others. Now as different states, geographical states, independent nation states, right? And territories changed from state to nation, state to nation. For example, Transylvania, a lot of part of Transylvania was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and now it's present. A lot of it, part of Transylvania, is part of present-day Romania, which is in NATO now, but just like that. But there's no conflict in North America, so that propels World War II. This conflict overseas propels the beginning origins of the North American civilization collective. And another were the treaties, but these treaties were international. But there were unique treaties in North America, such as NAFTA, I believe it's 1988. Not only NAFTA, there was also a treaty of defense, a mutual defense agreement in Canada, US, which I'm going to include in Mexico. NORAD, NORAD. North American Airspace Defense, which is a joint Canadian-US endeavor. And then you had this participation, and you had the influx of migration. You had the migrations even from overseas, from Europe, from Africa, from the Middle East, and so forth. From Latin America, from South America, Central America, going north. And those cultures started constituting the North American civilizational collective, with based on these treaties. And based on the openness is another factor. The more openness, the more ease of movement across borders. I take the Schengen in Europe agreement. We have different agreements, right, with different laws constituting this. And also we have that we don't have that many in North America. We don't have, so to say, that many languages, right? As in per se in Europe, right? There's French, there's English, there's Spanish, there's German, there's Italian, there's Serbian, right? There's Flemish, there's Polish, right? North America, we have less languages, and more people speak these many languages in terms of the population. French, English, and Spanish, the de facto official languages. And we have the cultural exchanges, and we have the culture, whether created by Hollywood or independent artists within the general culture and the subculture. And the economic, financial, commercial treaties such as NAFTA plays another major pillar or step building this North American civilizational collective, of which I'm proposing my policies to be adopted as a Pan-American internationalist, Pan-American, to adopt one continent, two oceans. One continent, two oceans, one continent, two oceans. For security, for prosperity, for securing freedom. Sure, within that we can address issues of economic inequality, poverty, and also to encourage people to work out, volunteer, train, right? And to have new institutions, the complementary covenant and cooperative institutions of my own propositions of the International Citizen Integrated Social Security and Service Force, the aka the Dragan Army, which I do recognize has a lot of basis on what par with this North American civilizational collective theory, philosophical, geopolitical, cultural, social theory that proposes that the North America constitutes a civilizational collective, which has united Western civilization and also part of Latin American civilization, which kind of arises with Simon Bolivar, and goes with what's known as Gran Colombia, and the formation thereof. But of course, Brazil has Portuguese as the official language. There's more than 100 million people who speak Portuguese, right? But that's South America. And my policy is one border, which could include the whole Pan American continent, North America, Central America, South America, two oceans. Right? But within the North American civilization, we have people from different civilizations. Sino civilization, SINO, refers to China as a civilization. Now we have also maintaining of the Western civilization, Arab civilization, right? The migration, African civilization, Indian civilization, right? And so on and so forth. And the development of the unique politics, accords, defense accords, NORAD, pacts, mutual agreements, exchanges, commercial, financial, economic. But this is not the only one. It's not only economic, financial, commercial treaties and exchanges that form and that propel the North American collective, North American civilizational collective. There's also geopolitical realities and events that happened in Europe, in Asia, in the East and in the West, in the West and in the East and in the West, that propel or solidify the the formation of the North American civilizational collective. the linguistic factors, that it's not that many languages, three main ones, the cultural factors, even sports to a certain degree, sports. Of course, we have sports leagues, which I'm calling them to workout training exercise, support the Dragon Army. The NHL. NHL stands for National Hockey League. But in reality, and this is decades old, the NHL is not national. It's binational. It's both USA and Canada. It's not national. National Hockey League. You have Montreal here, Habs, Canadians. You have Canucks in Vancouver, in Canada. You have Toronto Maple Leafs, Calgary Flames, right? You had lots of teams which changed and disappeared. Colorado was the Nordics here in Quebec. We had two teams, right? Ottawa Senators, right? You have Canadian teams. So it's not national. The NBA, it's also binational. You have Toronto Raptors, right? Who won the NBA, brought the cup to Canada 2 years ago, right? The Raptors won 2 years ago. Yay! So you have also the sports, which form in many ways this culture, this North American civilizational collective. Because everything that comprises a civilization, everything that we do, perform, or work, volunteer, art, sports, right? There's NFL, National Football League, American football, but we also have the CFL. A lot of Canadians watch NFL, right? I watch more NFL perhaps than CFL, right? Football, American football, sports, arts, music, and have common languages. Here, we're very proud as Quebecois, Quebecers. We have Celine Dion, Quebecois, who's a pillar for the North American civilizational collective. It's famous in the USA, famous in Canada, and across the world for that matter. Wrote a song for Celine, North American civilizational collective. Arts, the dynamics, the trade, the easy movements and migration of people, more or less. I mean, the United States with the tourism in Cuba, although there's been more changes of a positive nature with Obama, now with Biden, not so much with Trump. I'm going to go into that discussion. I have the big geographical area, also big population, and we have the metropolitan areas. Right? Metropolitan areas in the east comprises Montreal, New York, Boston, and Ottawa. Then Texas metropolises, which comprise the development of big cities, right? The rural and the urban. And we have the agriculture, the integration of systems. Another integration of an example, which is not that well known, is the electricity, the power grids. For example, Hydro Quebec here, bless the workers' hands. Thank you, Hydro. I'm recording now, having light on this rainy day. Zero emission, zero pollution, environmentally friendly, renewable energy I'm using for this smartphone, which I've plugged in earlier. This laptop, using three. The lights, clean, renewable, zero emission energy from the river. 63 dams were built, right? But there's an integration of a grid, the power grid, as an integration. Canada, US, to a certain extent with northern Mexico, or the Baja California and California, the extent of the power grids being interconnected, right? For us to use the electricity in our homes, in our offices, in our schools, right? So this North American civilizational collective is emerging, has emerged. Different major events propelled it. Sort of the World War II gives birth to it, although it predates World War II, as many things do predate events or causes, if you will. World War II is the major one, major event, geopolitical event, which gives birth, begins in inception, the origins of the North American civilizational collective. Then within the cultures we have subcultures. pop stars, artists, movies. In many movies made in Hollywood or in Canada or in even Mexico, there are North American teams. People going from Canada to the US to Mexico, right? The easy tourism, a lot of Canadians, a lot of Americans go to Mexico. We have the food, which is culinary culture, cuisine, culture of cuisine, culinary culture, what's called, or fancy, sophisticated, cosmopolitan term, the culinary culture from Canada, Quebec, what we have. It's not only poutine, it's not only the poutine which we have, that's a more famous one. We have others in Canada as well, United States. It's not only the double cheeseburger and the hamburger and the and the fries and the hamburger and the double burger and the double cheese and the cheeseburger. It's not only that. There's many other in the South, rich in Louisiana cuisine with the spiciness. New York, more fast foodish. California also. You have Mexican cuisine, the exchange of culinary recipes, and of course, trade of fruits and vegetables and legumes which grow in Mexico, unique to Mexico. Avocados go a little bit in California as well, in the south, but the most that we have here on the market are from Mexico, which have eaten. I cannot remember if I ever seen California or US on an avocado that have eaten. Do know that I've seen Mexico, and mostly Mexico, but not others. So the eating, the fruits, the vegetables, the legumes. Then we have the transportation systems, the big highways, mega highways, the transcontinental, the North American continental highways, the Trans-Canada Highway, the rails, and another factor to the highways, right to the highways, major highways connecting Montreal to New York, east, west, and south, going south. South is that way for me. 718 miles from here is the south, served from 56 years in the U.S. Army. So we have a lot of different things. So the infrastructure built mostly after World War II, different levels. A little bit during the Great Depression, started with the building with after World War II. The infrastructure connecting Canada, US, and Mexico. Highways connecting US and Mexico. Highways connecting Canada and USA. And that's these three countries to the highways with the NAFTA corridor. If you never heard of the NAFTA corridor refers to this infrastructure which exists, which is for cars, trucks. How many trucks now, brothers and sisters, truckers from Mexico, Canada, US go vice versa? Bless you, kiss you, hug you, bless you, kiss you, hug you, bless you, kiss you, hug you. Love is action. Dragan Army, east, west, north, south. Go give the farmers a massage. Go give the points of service and security. Service and security, service and security. That's the proposition. East, west, north, south, from Hakka and beyond. Our brothers and some sisters, workers, truckers. I don't know the ratio of men and women, or who those who identify as women or trans or LGBTQ in the trucker industry. Don't know. Know a little bit, can only learn more. But do know that some truckers are struggling also economically, financially, commercially, like yours truly, with the gases prices increasing. They could use a massage. NFL players, yeah, big pay. Why don't you go give a yeah in break now? Already made your millions. Go massage the truckers a little bit, cause y'all gotta eat too. Rich NBA players, rich all time. You don't need a house. You got 3 houses, 7 cars. You don't need. You can volunteer. Go give the truckers a massage. No, we'll do it together. Dragon Army. No, we can do. Have a pit stops, east, west, north, south, Mexico, Canada, United States. Give the amnesty, right? Legalize some drugs because there's a market in the U.S. Sanitize, clean with security and sanitation. So we did here in Quebec. It's been okay, no major problem legalizing cannabis, right? Channeling, sublimating violence by incentivize working out, training, exercising, do push-up, do squats. Channel that energy to give somebody a massage. That's why I could use Tom Brady. I could use a real neck rub there. Everybody got to eat. That I don't. I do know for sure. Everybody got to eat. That I do know for sure. Everybody got to eat, even me. Grateful for all those sausages. Have and got some eggs. Make an omelet. Right. We can do better in all areas. I can do better. You can do better. We can all do better. I was buying 11:05 a.m. Buy, sell future stocks. Who made a million in the stock market? Down there, East Montreal, TSX made 100,000 today. Good for you. You're gonna give some charity for food security. You're gonna be selfish. What do we do with the money? Money, money, money. What is money? Unit of exchange. Buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. My own propositions for the debt refusion theory. We put implemented and create the UE, the UE, the UE. It has been back to the North American corridor. What is the North American corridor? The infrastructure of highways linking US, Canada, Mexico, Mexico, Canada, US, Mexico, Canada, US. With truckers now going plus supply chains. Plus we got the ports on the East Coast, West Coast. How many ports, how many workers now wearing steel toe boots in warehouses? Salute, salute, thank you. Warehouses putting steel toe boots. They could use a raise, they could use a massage. They could use some services, right? For the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. Unions, my own theories upon unions for the North American civilizational collective, for have to be of service for the new economic, financial, commercial system, to be of pleasure, of purpose. And I have dreams. I'm willing to do push-ups, work, clean, exercise, drill, drill, drill. The infrastructure, the North NAFTA corridor. The NAFTA corridor is the infrastructure linking the highways, US, Canada, and Mexico. Plus, we have such as NORAD, which is the defense pact for the common airspace of Canada, which is wide. How many planes across Canada now? Landing, landing, landing. Lifting off from Canada airports, major airports. Atlanta, I believe, is the busiest. Atlanta, right? ATL, Georgia. Now south. And other ports across Mexico, the North American Civilizational Collective. Flying. We have NORAD to defense, but this is a military defense. But this is also North American treaty. Specific, unique to the North American Civilizational Collective, Canada and US. NORAD, North American Aero Defense Treaty. NORAD, it's called NORAD, with radars to see if jets from whatever XYZ armies don't come. We have jets, different jets. Like Canada, US, is part of NATO. But we have also this unique defense of the aerospace. It's called NORAD, which includes Canadian aerospace. So there's an altitude, XYZ altitude across Canada, across US. NORAD. Then we have the infrastructure up and below. The infrastructure, the highways, right? To that, to the highways, to the infrastructure, what do we have else? We have the supply chains, which are linked, integrated supply chains. Canada, US, Mexico, really integrated with farms, with factories, with exchange of resource, crossing now so much level. How many truckers now? There's perhaps in the hundreds, if not thousands, going east, west, north, south, crossing between these, the North American Civilizational Collective, and for that matter, also the maritime, including Haiti, North Cuba, the islands, with different goods, right? For example, we have on the market here goods from Cuba, tobacco from Cuba, coffee from Cuba. US, just a few states, just a little bit of products, just still, of course, a lot of things to resolve with Cuba. There's things to resolve within myself. Right? I channel, sublimate sexual impulses, right? Which we have lust, sublimate. Because repressing will make us sick, ill, perhaps in disease. Accepting, maybe laughing, and maybe taking positive, channeling, sublimating action. Cleaning, working out, training, exercising, right? Because lust in itself is not evil, bad, sinful. It's something. Anything of sexuality with consent and hygiene, right? Yeah, I admit, I watch pornography sometimes. So to the North American infrastructure, we have other infrastructure. We have NAFTA, which is a big treaty, which is for the North American Civilizational Collective. And we have the planes, and we have the infrastructures linking. And to the highways where the trucks are now moving back and forth across the borders of Canada, US, Mexico, US, linking these three, thousands of trucks with goods, with their food, clothing, items, apparel, whatever the goods are, because it's mostly goods. Parliament of Canada, Congress, bit of pit stop, go pinpoint armies and go give the truckers who need a massage. Service and security, with of course tra- tracking for the service so that there's no abuse. Citizens. That's why you're not to ask every day, 3 times a day for a massage. There, have service and security, service and security, services and security. It's my proposition for the new institution to be integrated with institutions, infused, integrated with all existing public and private institutions and organizations to do better, to balance citizen privacy and freedoms, individual liberty, and the collective. It's not always not easy, right? We have different natures, characters, characteristics, and skills and competency, right? I don't want to have experienced different things. I want to afford a little bit of bacon, right? I want to eat better, let's say. I do well for that. I would eat better. Perhaps afford or be able to get once in a while a cake which I've never tasted, or champagne which I never tasted before, a liquor, whiskey which I never tasted, a tequila from Mexico which I've never tried. I don't want to experience those. Not negating, I'm not practicing ascetic, psychosexual and spiritual behavior. I'm not about asceticism. I have selfishness within myself. I try to be in the middle, but that stated ain't no way that if I would have had millions of dollars, I would have not financed doing this stuff. Economic, financial, commercial times, food security is important for me, and LGBTQ community issues, art specific to the LGBTQ community, or other environmental issues, other issues. And I'm not perfect. So, to the infrastructure of the superhighway, what's known as the NAFTA corridor or the North American corridor, which are the highways linking Canada, US for the transportation on wheels, basically cars and trucks and trailers and cars. There is also the rails. The railways are also integrated in North America in parallel to the cars, where the highways of North America infrastructure, the highways, there's also the railway infrastructure connecting Canada, US, whether via rail or other rails, major ones, or all across North America, connecting Canada, US, and Mexico via, with the rails, with the trains, right? The trains that go between Canada, US, and Mexico, carrying also goods from east to west coast here, petrol or milk or goods, grain. Now, how many? Carrying east to west and vice versa, west to north, or from Canada to the US, or from the US to Canada, or from Mexico to Canada. There's last time when I did a march, I seen was a pit stop via rail or CN, not just via rail, but CN Canadian National, mostly Canadian National is for the grain, for the as the bigger, for the petrol, for the gas, for the other goods, resources, minerals, and such, and goods, grains, wheat, lentils, potatoes, other goods, dairy, whatever, on the rails and going east west from Canada, from coast to coast, and from Mexico to Canada, and from they're linked, Canada, US, Mexico, also not just by the highway infrastructure but the rail. So this also, the infrastructure is infrastructure, whether the highways or the railways, also is part of the North American civilizational collective, of the civilizational collective of North America, the North American civilizational collective. Not just the culture, not just the trade, not just the mutual defense agreements of NORAD, the Economic, Financial, Commercial Treaty of NAFTA, the movement of peoples and the languages added to that, with the cultures, the general culture mass produced by Hollywood mainly, others and local and subcultures within the cultures. But we also have the infrastructure, highways to be able to go by car, From Canada to Mexico, you're able to go by car. Take a car from Montreal, it's going to take you a few days, but by car, you go directly to Mexico, even beyond. There's roads, highways, go by car, by truck, and also by train, connecting Canada, US, Mexico, perhaps even beyond. You might have to switch, but there is. So it's North American transcontinental infrastructures, both. Oh, and of course you have the third, because you have the planes. So you had the infrastructure of the highways, cars, trucks, the rails, the trains, and you have in the air the planes, which can go directly from Montreal to Mexico City. There's direct flights, and vice versa across North America. So we have that within the North American Civilizational Collective. And then we have the aspirations. Then we have also the values, new values which have arisen to have a prosperity, the North American prosperity aspirations towards a general overall prosperity. And we have also the social security nets and service and welfare system of social security net. And we also have the values, philosophical, cultural, social values, which are original to the North American Civilizational Collective, which Canadians, those in the USA, and in Mexico, Americans, and North Americans, we share more or less in different ways, but we do share as a common values, more or less. Within that, there's those more on the right wing, those more on the left wing, or those in the center or in the center left, because we have center right, center left, center right, or left, but constituted in many ways within the North American Civilizational Collective, where we have by voting, the unique voting terms, and the unique development of the cross-cultural, cross-social, political, and the intermarriage, and of course the amalgamation of immigration. The Within the North American Civilizational Collective, we also have multiculturalism and melting pot. The North American Collective includes these philosophical ways, social, cultural, philosophical, social, cultural, philosophical ways. Melting pot. A melting pot, the philosophy, social, cultural melting pot, meaning that cultures, peoples, nations blend in together to form a more uniform, more monolithic culture together. A blend, melting pot. Right? As more US has a more melting pot approach. Right? For social, cultural, philosophical idea or ideology or ideal of the melting pot more in the US. Canada is more or multicultural. I'm a little of each. It's North American citizen of North America, part of the North American Civilizational Collective. We have also that dynamic which plays into the greater North American Civilizational Collective. Because a civilization implies common denominators, common cultural, economic, financial, commercial, sociological, even psychological. And these all help, whether the World War II or other treaties, tourism, the infrastructure, which allowed tourism and trade and exchange, whether by rail or by cars, helped cement also a psychology. I often refer myself to a North American world citizen, to a North American. A lot of people, since especially millennials, many have heard the term North American. I am North American. So usually referring to people who are from Canada, US, Mexico, and even the islands, Cuba, Haiti, and Dominican Republic, right? Because there's migration and trade that is specific on the grand scope on the North American trade, cultural exchange, and tourism, volunteering, aid, right? Aid between different states, nations within the North American civilizational collective. Charity. Then you have the different spiritualities, right? With new spiritualities, whether the New Age movement, Wicca, or Telema, right? Champara, as a universal spiritual teaching student of nature and civilization. Civilization is what? As civilizations have risen and developed from the amalgamation of different cultures, tribes, even at the beginning, right? Different tribes who came together to form a civilization. There's many instances in the history of that. One can argue, or a lot of historians argue, that Roman Empire and de facto Greco-Roman, because see, it's not used as the Grecian civilization or the Greco civilization, although some historians do use it. Roman civilization, Greco civilization, part of Western civilization, but more the term that do prefer using, although do use Roman civilization, Greco civilization, Greco-Roman civilization, Greco-Roman civilization, Greco-Roman civilization, right? Within West or Western civilization, right? So the civilization of Greece, the civilization of Rome, after different eras, pinpointed to about more or less after 300 BC, around 200 BC, so even 100 BC, from let's say 300 BC to 300 AD, the Greco-Roman civilization would blended, crossed, developed, right? Some say, and I do have perhaps that philosophy to say that the Romans were more, to generalize, and of course don't like to generalize, but if you can make that supposition, assumption, or analysis that the Romans were more practical and the Greeks were more philosophical. Of course, the Greeks were also practical, and of course, the Romans were also philosophical and had philosophy. But one can say that the Romans were more practical, building aqueducts, building roads, getting from point A to point B. What do we eat? What do we work out? What do we do for the body? How can we better the body and the constructions? But not neglecting the mind, because they had philosophy, there's philosophy and stuff. But the Greco civilization, Greek culture in ancient, I'm speaking about ancient, of course, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, these were more the mind, the body, the abstract notions. While the Romans could be said to be more about the practical, the physical, doing and building, more practical in building here, and get the wheat from point A to point B, build roads, made the city of the center, and build roads. While more physical action, practical. While the Greeks will also have, of course, practical in the architectural styles and constructions and spirituality, but they were also, one can say, and I do make that philosophical, historical analysis, theoretical, that the Romans were more practical, the Greeks were more philosophical. Right? Greek philosophers, philosophy, the mind, the abstract, the being, dissecting nature and morals, and ethics based on philosophy and thinking and theory and such. While the Romans were more practical. Within the North American civilizational collective, one can say that we have both these, just as the Greco-Roman civilization comprises of the amalgamation of the Greeks, ancient Greek civilization and ancient Roman civilization into one part of the Western civilization, the Greco-Roman civilization, what's called. Whether we date it from XYZ or XYZ, the fact remains. So now as we move towards a global civilization, and I've written a short analysis theory called "The God Needs a Goddess," but I've written "God of Civilization" and towards a universal world order of law-abiding regulations, rules. It's not always easy. What's written on paper to put on practice. The Romans practical, Greek philosophical. I'm a little bit of each. Clumsy sometimes. Sometimes I'm mediocre at some things. I'm average. And even useless. So good a word, useless, but could do some BDSM switch. Don't mind BDSM switch. BDSM switch. It's another story, another cup of coffee, finance, commission, donate. Body's a temple for pleasure and purpose. Could be said that my my phrase, the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose, comprises both a practical approach and a philosophical approach. Because if the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose, that means the purpose can be more practical, to do, to offer help to somebody, to carry groceries, being physicality, carry a fridge, carry a washer and dryer, carry luggage, carry this, unload, load trucks, physical or clean, right? And the body, pleasure and purpose, to do for you, to do for others, work, volunteer, do X, Y, Z, read a book to some children, whatever it is. Right? For purpose, that's the purpose, to help somebody to in X, Y, Z, or to volunteer the purpose, or oneself or others, to complement others' skills with your body, do whatever. Massage therapy, or washing the feet, doing nails, doing hair, doing this. That's the purpose, but it also has a pleasure. Receiving a massage, when you receive it, you get the pleasure. Kiss a hug, when you give it, you receive the pleasure, is the purpose. Body, not to be shunned, to be seen as something evil, negative, undesirable. Oh, we move past that in the philosophy. So the North American civilizational collective comprises new values within the Western civilizational values, which sometimes do clash, are at odds, such as the ideology or the philosophy of multiculturalism and melting pot. They're not necessarily opposed or in conflict. Not necessarily in conflict or opposed. There's nuances within those, right? Within those. And of course, the North American civilizational collective has the uniqueness that we are also multiracial. I do believe in one human race. I do believe in one human race. I do believe in one human race because I do say that one human race because otherwise we wouldn't be able to have children together, right? I wouldn't be able to have children with a black woman or an Asian woman, or if you want to be part of the one human race. So we have that. We're multiracial, and interracial marriages have been on the increase. Which I'm all for, very pro. But we have also subconscious biases and hidden fears and within ourselves, which we must analyze. And sometimes it's hard to admit. It's hard to admit and hard to admit in the open, right? We have tensions at the some Americans and some Mexicans, right? People don't get along. Have tensions within here, within the city, Montreal and Quebec being bilingual, French and English. We have that. So within the North American civilizational collective, common denominators, values to work towards security, prosperity, and liberty of the individual within the collective. That all these and events outside of the North American continent triggered, such as World War III, or World War II, maybe we're in World War III now, which perhaps is gonna come to solidify even more North America. Have the North America coming even more strongly together, which I'm all for integration of the adoption of my theories, not just in North America, but Pan-American and for that matter international. For my brothers and sisters in Asia, my brothers and sisters in Africa, my brothers and sisters in the Middle East, my brothers and sisters in Europe. I understand we have aggression, we have violence, we have a channel. It's not easy. Sometimes we have jealousies, envies, resentments. I've dealt with them. It's hard to admit. resentments, jealousies. Things are hard to admit, right? We lie, 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 lie. We hide, and it's not always easy. As an independent psychosexual theorist, independent psychological theorist, analyzing my own self experiences, the cultures, my own tendencies, the subconscious forces, which move us in different ways to have fear, promote hatreds, and this. Not always easy, open to admit that, I have this jealousy towards X, I have this resentment towards Y, towards XY. Not easy to admit. 11:30 a.m. Who made another million on the stock market? I don't know. I'm broke, but my work is gold. My rent's paid May 27th. The government's asking me for a few $2,000 back. That sucks. That sucks. That sucks. Be frustrated. Gonna keep on doing. Working out, training, exercising. Love is action. Who made another half a million? Who lost on the stock market? Or to buy, sell, stock, trade, make love tonight. Could use a good massage. I got food. Got noodles. Got sardines. Got some pasta. So I got food for days. Supply chains. Commend the work of Germany and the US for Operation Fly Formula. Food security is important. I'm in a North American civilizational collective. We can't have food security. We have a lot of food waste. Have a lot of food production, but we have a lot of food waste. Right now, somebody's making a sandwich. Thank you, love you. For the truckers, a trucker now stopped somewhere in Canada having a sandwich because it's lunch, having a coffee. Has to drive for another 6 hours. I have to bring that. He's not getting paid enough. Who's buying his buy, sell on stay Wall Street? Multimillionaire. BlackRock, BlackRock, BlackRock. Also gotta eat, Mr. Fink. What you gotta eat for lunch now? Everybody gotta eat, man. That I do know. Multimillionaire athletes gotta eat. Multimillionaire artists gotta eat. I gotta eat. Westmount people gotta eat. Everybody gotta eat. Right? Food prices increasing. My brothers and sisters of North American multimillionaire, multi-billionaire, were the CEOs of corporations. Please change the policies. Food waste. Big corporations, I'm not gonna name names. As food security is important, and encourage people to volunteer. Mass finance, working out, training, exercising, mass finance, volunteer, mass finance support, politically, morally, socially, my North American civilizational collective theory and propositions for one border, two oceans, one border, two oceans, one border, two oceans, north, central, south, and beyond. So that was an introduction to my philosophical social theory, North American civilizational collective, thus that North America constitutes a civilizational collective, a collective of civilization in North America, Canada, US, Mexico, and paradoxically Cuba, with Haiti and the Dominican Republic and the islands, constitute the North American civilizational collective, or the civilizational collective of North America, however you want. Adrian H. Dragan, yours truly, independent philosopher, independent psychosexual theorist, and geopolitical analyst and theorist, and independent artist, athlete, activist. Out. Make love tonight.